Is this the year that Ohio State coach Ryan Day finally ends the losing streak to Michigan, or do we expect it to be more of the same in 2025 when they play the game? What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. If this is your first time watching Adapt and Respond, thank you for joining us here. We talk college football year round. If that is something you're into, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, like this video, and answer the question in the comments below. Do you believe that Ohio State will put an end to its losing streak to Michigan? I'm sure you got an answer. Go ahead and tell me about it in the comments below. I'm also going to take this opportunity to remind you, we've got an audio podcast on Apple and Spotify. And if you are kind enough to go to Spotify and Apple and leave us a 5-star review, I will put one of these stickers in the mail to you. Just go ahead and hit the subscription. Hit the link in the description below. Tell me where I can send your sticker and a thank you note. So by now, you know what time it is, right? Ohio State, Michigan. End of the season every year, November. Biggest game in the Big Ten each year. The game, as it has been known nationally forever. Ohio State fans are everywhere. Michigan fans are everywhere. Ohio State fans are not. And there has been growing animosity between the two basically since we started playing the game back in the 19th century. We're in 156 years of college football. And it feels like for at least 130 of those, Ohio State and Michigan have hated each other. And there has been a run of streaks of losing and winning on both sides. Right now, we are currently in one. Ohio State fans will be quick to remind you that they ran off 8 in a row before Jim Harbaugh could get one back in 2021. And during that stretch, we're also talking about winning the national championship in 2014. But since Michigan beat them in 2021, beat them in 2022, and then punched their ticket over their dead body in 2023, and then this really impressive and leveling win, depending on who you are. Impressive if you were Michigan, leveling if you were Ohio State, 2024, right? So what do we have to go on here? Aside from Sherrone Moore has been a part of those Michigan teams each and every year as offensive line coach, as coordinator, as head coach, or acting head coach, depending on how you want to do it. Like I've said, year 3 for him, but year 2, it depends on how you want to look at it, right? We can go year 2. We can go year 3, but I think it's more like a year 3, mostly because when Jim Harbaugh was suspended as head coach, Chiron Moore was the acting head coach unless he was suspended. And he was the guy on the sideline when Jim Harbaugh was not in the building when they played Ohio State in 2023 at the Big House, and they got that win to punch their ticket to the Big Ten championship and ultimately won the national championship going 15-0. Sweeter still because, again, they did it over Ohio State's dead body. 2024, Ohio State wins the national championship but loses to Michigan. Now, never mind, they also lost to Oregon. It matters more to Michigan fans that they went 15-0 with a win against their rival, while Ohio State needed to go 14-2 with a loss against their rival. So if we are keeping score in a very narrow way, we would still say Michigan's got an edge here, to which Ohio State would add, hey, you won 4 in a row, we won 8. You got to get twice as many more wins over us before we start actually feeling some heat. But that's not really true now, is it? Because while Sherrone Moore has been a part of each one of the teams that have beaten Michigan, Ryan Day has been the head coach of each one of those teams that have lost to Michigan. And that is really what we're discussing here. We're not talking about can they win the national championship, because the Big Ten is responsible for the last 2 national champions, and they are Ohio State and Michigan, respectively. We are talking about Chiron Moore becoming what Jim Harbaugh did to end his career at Michigan, which is nothing short of a supervillain as it pertains to Ohio State football. He loves to beat them. He loves how they beat them. And after the flag planting stuff that happened last year, it is nothing more than personal. It's always going to be personal. Chiron Moore, a man who went to college when I went to college, went to OU, played football at OU, but wants to be remembered as a Michigan man. I will remind Michigan fans, you got to come to Oklahoma and bring your $12 million true freshman quarterback that ain't played the lick of football to play against Brent Venables' defense, and then we're going to see what it do, baby. We're going to see what it do. But, this is the thing. I've lately been fascinated with DNA and philosophy as it pertains to college football because we are in an era of such change. Name, image, and likeness, transfer portal, revenue sharing, immediate eligibility and transfers, paying high school players before you get there, going up from $0 made to 7 figures made in some cases. So I'm looking at these programs that have not only survived the changes, but have thrived despite them. So as an example here, I've used Georgia, who has one 1,000-yard receiver in its history. One. It's Terrence Edwards in 2002, who had 1,004 yards. So A.J. Green, no. Brock Bowers, no. Hines Ward, no. Keep going down the list. George Pickens, no. They haven't had one. Now, you can make all sorts of excuses as to why, with a 3,700-yard passer, 3,500-yard passer that, they spread the ball around, whatever. But what it comes back to is they run the ball and they play defense. Put it another way, Georgia went back-to-back, 21-22, without a 1,000-yard receiver because they didn't need one. It's not in their DNA. It's not who they are. Who they are is a team that runs the ball and sits on your chest. To that end, Michigan has had just 2 3,000-yard passers in its school history. And they ain't exactly the Mount Rushmore quarterbacks at Michigan. What they do is run the football and play defense. Now, when they had a Braylon Edwards, they threw him the ball. But they've had way more Mike Hart's and Blake Corums and Hassan Haskins than they have Braylon Edwards, and that's also by design, right? The Big Ten, 3 yards in a cloud of dust. I mean, there wasn't that long ago that dudes from where I'm from, where we throw the ball around, would go, I would rather watch grass grow than play Big Ten football because you're not going to throw. It's not fun. It's not fun unless you play offensive line or running back, right? It's a place where Eddie George can be a Heisman Trophy winner. At Oklahoma, that guy's going to be a quarterback. That guy's going to run some version of spread. You're also looking at a Michigan team that leaned in on its identity when things were going badly. They beat Ohio State without a quarterback in Columbus. They baited Ohio State into playing their game, physical and up the middle, when Ohio State was built to expose everybody on the outside. They had players, Jeremiah Smith on the outside. They had Carnell Tate on the outside, Brandon Ennis, and Emeka Egbuka. And then inside, when you needed to go there, you go Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson. But as soon as they decided to start throwing the rock to 4, things changed for them. But it took that loss for them to lean in all the ways that they should. And that happened against Tennessee, happened hugely against Oregon, hugely again against Texas, and then, of course, Notre Dame national championship game. But I think what you're going to see is more the same from Michigan and Sherrone Moore. They're going to have a true freshman starter at quarterback. He's going to be very talented, but they also don't have any wide receivers that anybody cares about, and none that were productive last year. Just our best receiver returned with 260 yards receiving in a season. But again, that's not what they do. What they do is run the ball, play defense. So they got Justice Haynes, Jordan Marshall. They'll be great on the offensive line, and Wink Martindale will have that defense ready to play. What's fascinating about this rivalry and why I wanted to do this topic is Ryan Day has done it a lot of different ways. He's wanted to run the ball and run the ball and run the ball, especially early in the season. And he had to get beat to be forced to throw the ball. And this is a man who came in to basically modernize the offense. They went from running basketball on grass to throwing it down the field. And they got dividends paid, right? Justin Fields, Dwayne Haskins, C.J. Stroud. But he's always wanted to run the football and run it well, so much so that he probably did it to the detriment of Ohio State up until they lose to Oregon. And then you kind of figure out we do have an edge out here we ought to use. This is also a program that wasn't heavy on producing outstanding wide receivers for some time. I mean, in between first-round draft picks that were Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, Anthony Gonzalez and Ted Ginn Jr., like that's a chasm. Now, you got some great receivers that come through, Michael Thomas being one of them, but he was a second-round pick. KJ Hill is great, but he's a seventh-round pick. The NFL didn't think that much of these players. And you didn't have a lot of guys playing wide receiver in Scarlet Gray that caught a lot of passes until Ryan Day gets there and Brian Hartline starts to turn out some studs where you can force the ball down the field and get 4,400-yard passers in guys like C.J. Stroud, damn near 4,000-yard passer in Kyle McCord, 4,000-yard passer in Will Howard, probably a 4,000-yard passer in Julian Sayin. But as the identity has changed, you've also seen them begin to lose to this team, Michigan, that knows exactly who it is no matter what. Doesn't matter if Jim Harbaugh's the head coach. Doesn't matter if Sherrone Moore's the head coach. They know who they are. Now, we don't know what, if any, punishment will come to Michigan, and I'm not really concerned about that here in this segment. I am saying it will be curious to see just what identity Ohio State shows against Texas, what identity Michigan shows against Oklahoma, and then it's a party.